Any other public input other than what we have on our agenda later? All right.
Hi, I'm sorry, I got my hand up. I don't know if you guys
Sorry,
see it or
there you
not.
go. Go ahead, John. Sorry, I
I'm sorry.
wasn't looking at that board.
But no, it's all right. I'm on a new phone, so hopefully it's going to work better. Just in terms of when emails get published, my email had some schedule details in it that was published this week, and we've had break-ins up the road. It also had other people's schedules in it. So like, I didn't think it was going to be published as part of the meeting materials. And I've since gotten an email from Jesse. So I just didn't know, because in the past you guys have published also, emails that have like all of my contact details, name, address, phone number, and email. Which I didn't expect to be published because it was part of something that you guys had requested that I send to the selectmen. Is there sort of like, a rationale between what does or doesn't get published? I'm just trying to understand.
Jesse, do you want to make any comment on that?
Yeah, it's not the first time it's come up. It's just a difficult rock and a hard place situation. So when we get correspondence, specifically because we're in this remote environment, we've been putting the packets up with all the correspondence on the website. We've had many requests from different people in town that they want to be able to see the packet that the board is also receiving. So, we're compelled by law to make sure that the documents are available for people to see that are submitted to the board, and that includes correspondence and emails. Yet at the same time, recognize that sometimes, somebody may say something or have something in there that they didn't really want public. So what becomes difficult basically for Malcolm and I is if we try to play the role of gatekeeper and decide, well, we won't publish this, we'll just publish that. It's hard for us to really determine without some sort of specific criteria. It's possible that now that we're in the remote environment, this is something that Denise, the select board, and the town can think of as a whole about how they want to have public documents up on the website and when it's appropriate and when it isn't. I just don't want to try to make up my own rules on the fly. So we've definitely been wrestling with this, and I don't necessarily have a great answer at the moment.
No, it's okay. It's just, it not only contains aspects of my personal schedule, but also other people's schedules. If you look back in the email as to what was written in it before my response. So you just might want to consider taking it down, particularly with the break-ins up the street from me, but also the other information that you kind of shared in it. So, okay. All right.
Okay.
I got your other email, Jesse, if I could give you a call tomorrow, maybe.
Yeah, I'll be in the office. Yep.
Okay. All right. And would Sue be available then as well, or?
I don't know that yet, but I can follow up. Yep.
All right. No, that's great. Okay. And just while we're on that topic, do we have any erosion control plans yet, or?
No, I did speak with the engineer for 137 Harvard Road, and he indicated that he was planning to have plans in time for the public hearing continuance next week.
Okay. And that would still give like Sue enough time to review and all, or?
That's questionable. I told him that I wanted to see it a week in advance because I wanted our consulting engineer to be able to see it. I'll get it to her as soon as I can, and then I'll have to wait and hear what she says.
All right. And no update as of yet as to any stuff that's percolating up from their septic system, like no testing or anything?
Nothing more, no.
Okay. No, that's fine. It still comes past our driveway sometimes. So I've also got other neighbors who are using our driveway for bus pickup now. So it's just, okay. All right. I'll give you a call tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Any planning board member updates?
So I'll mention that the CPC last night recommended that we put on the town warrant the funding for the purchase to the tune of $2.5 million of the Stowe Acres. I don't think it's the whole north course, but a piece of that that the town, Jesse probably knows more about the specifics, but the CPC did vote to approve putting that forward to a town meeting.
All
Of
right.
course, it's up to the town meeting to decide if they want to spend that money, but
Thanks, John. Any other planning board member updates? All right, Jesse.
Okay. Let's see. I want to start with kind of the scheduling stuff and some of the bigger issues that have taken place and answer some of Nancy's questions from earlier. I think I'll get them all just in the course of this. So yeah, John just gave us the update. Up CPC voted last night to bring that article forward. Town meeting is scheduled for October 30th. It's going to be a Saturday. It's going to be a Saturday morning. The primary article, of course, will be the purchase using Community Preservation Act funds of the portions of the North Course. And that kind of helps the town. That's a critical piece that builds on the vote from the last annual town meeting to purchase a conservation restriction on the South Course. So these two votes together really put in motion the larger vision that's been talked about now for a year or so. So that is it's exciting. It's a big vote of town meeting, and I think we're going to plan to have one more public forum prior to that meeting, so people can understand the parameters of the deal that's taken shape to purchase Stowe Acres, what it means for the town, and all the particulars and the things people would want to know prior to raising their hand one way or the other at town meeting. So that'll be on the 30th. In addition to that, the fact that we have a special town meeting, Malcolm and I have been looking over our work plan and the amount of zoning that we expect will be coming up for the May annual town meeting. And given that we have a special now in October, we'd like to try to take a crack at getting some of these things out of the way now. So what I would like to bring forward are several potential zoning amendments. I was planning to put out a public hearing notice to get these on the docket, so to speak, in time for I believe it's an October 4th warrant close. So if the planning board decides that they don't want to move forward with any of these, even though we've published them, that's fine. We don't have to go forward with it, but I would at least like to get all of the legal wheels in motion in case we're able to come to agreement. So right now, the bylaw updates that we were planning to go forward with, I think we talked about a few weeks ago, but just to refresh everyone's memory, we've got the relatively minor AAN updates based on our active adult neighborhood updates based on our discussion with Habitat a month or two ago. We've put those into a format that we think will work. We had some updates to the sidewalk bylaw, section 9.2. That's a section of bylaw that requires sidewalks for special permits. We wanted to clean up the marijuana sections of the bylaw. There's a lot of uses that are not allowed because of a subsequent vote at the polls back when we adopted the marijuana bylaw. So it leaves the bylaw in just kind of a messy, uncertain condition. We wanted to clean that up. Also pulling the moratorium off the books since that is no longer relevant. And then last one, the one that is probably the one that would garner the most attention or discussion, I think, is we're expecting next week that you'll have a letter in hand from the Economic Development and Industrial Commission specifically requesting a formal kind of adoption or support for a bylaw to make some minor updates to the sign bylaw, specifically around the prohibition on illuminated signs. So it sounds like a big list. It's actually simpler than it sounds. So we'll bring that forward. And like I said, if something needs more thought, even though we've noticed it, it doesn't mean we can't just push it off and deal with it in May if that's a better time. But nonetheless, I know that the EDIC has met on several occasions about this sign bylaw item, and I think this is a timely one. So we'll have plenty of we'll have time. I'm hoping to make time on our September 21st agenda. So we obviously have the 137 Harvard Road public hearing continuance. I was hoping to just have these discussion of the zoning bylaw aspects as the only other item that evening. unless something unexpected comes up. Okay, so let's see here. The next thing coming up on October 7th is we're going to have a presentation on how to match our zoning with the vision for Lower Village in the future. And so that's something that Dodson and Flinker has been helping us with, and they have some specific zoning recommendations. They've looked at the board's draft bylaw. They have various case studies from around the region that they're going to share. So we're going to try to bill that as a joint boards meeting. That's a Thursday night. So we're hoping that no other boards are meeting that night. And we're going to try to invite in addition to just the general public, the board, the select board, planning board, of course, the Lower Village Revitalization Committee, and the Economic Development Commission.
Sorry, Jesse, what night was that?
That is Thursday, October 7th.
Okay.
That sounds
so
good.
Hopefully all members can make that.
Looking right now.
And yeah, so that's going to be exciting. We had just a kind of a staff meeting with them just to talk about what our expectations were for that night and just get a sense of a little bit about what they were going to present. I think the board will get a lot out of it. I know Malcolm and I did just in our initial conversation. So it was great. I let John know about the 137 Harvard Road plans prior to the public hearing continuance. We've been in this position before, hoping we get things on time. Sometimes we don't. We won't know that until we really get ready and post an agenda for our next meeting. So just keep your eyes peeled on that agenda, and hopefully we'll have something in the packets that that Sue Carter, our consulting engineer, can look at as well. Going down the line here, I met with Stowe House of Pizza last week, the owner there, as well as their engineer, to try to really get down to detail on what the plan modifications that are required entail, and get a sense of what their issues were with getting things going. So I do think we're going to see an updated plan sometime in the near future. And I do think there's probably going to be some request for a modification of that. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet. This is a very similar situation that we're at with NANS, which we'll talk about later, which we have an approved plan and we're waiting on these plan modifications until we can really move forward. So I'll try to keep the board up to speed and hopefully have something there soon. Couple of quick things on Spring Hill Estates. I issued the developer and folks there last week a letter basically stating that I haven't seen any erosion controls on the 2 lots that are preparing to be stumped and grubbed, and that we're going to be holding back building permits until we see those erosion controls go in. And then we asked them to have some of the erosion controls that needed repair due to sedimentation fixed up as of the end of day yesterday. Malcolm went out there, took some photos. I do think while it wasn't, while it may be, there's always room for improvement when it comes to erosion control stuff, but I think the efforts that they took were enough to be in good shape there. And I'm going to wait to see the erosion control report from Ducharme and Gillis, and we'll reassess. But I think we're in pretty good shape there. And then the last 2 updates I'll provide, I know this is a huge list this week. The Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is like the regional transportation organization, is interested in providing a grant to look at, do some research and recommendations on the town center, on basically the intersection of Route 117 and Route 62, which is going to be the subject of a larger project in RFP. So this will be some great preliminary research. It'll kind of set the groundwork for what we want to talk about on a more substantive level with an engineer. So we're excited that they were interested in that intersection. And then we are contracting with Green International to take a look at the crosswalk location between Town Building and Town Hall. And we're going to get going on that shortly. So there are going to be some pedestrian improvements happening over this fall. So we're just getting all the things in place at the moment to move forward. And then, sorry, one more. Arnie Epstein and Mike Duclos, who we all had a conversation with several weeks back about but what's the word I'm looking for? Alternative energy supplies and things of that nature, and energy efficiency, specifically at the Active Adult Neighborhood District. Met with Habitat, Bruce Wheeler of Habitat, and he was very receptive to the ideas that they had. They're putting him in touch with some other people that can get more into detail with some of the technologies that they were all talking about. So they thought it was a very good meeting, and they're likely going to be having another. So just wanted to let everyone know where that was at. And I'm going to leave it there.
All right.
So
Thanks,
Jesse, sorry, Jesse, have you heard anything about the Green Advisory Committee? Because I haven't heard anything about it. Do you know if it's been constituted yet, or?
I believe it has. Yeah, I couldn't rattle off the whole list of people that are on it, but I know the Economic Development Commission was the last ones that had not nominated somebody, and they just did that last week. So maybe I'll certainly find out, but it could just be as simple as an email to the selectmen to get an update on what that committee looks like right now.
Yeah, I can confirm that we did send a letter to the select board about your appointment, John.
Yeah, okay, I haven't heard
Yeah.
about anything about a meeting or anything.
I saw that they just either tonight or last
think
week,
it
I
was
don't remember
tonight.
which, they were
Yeah.
appointing the members at large.
I think it was
Okay.
tonight. That's why we were under the gun to get the EDIC to provide a
Yeah.
nomination. So my guess is, John, is you're going to hear something shortly.
Okay, thank you.
A quick question, Jesse. Is that October 30th date for the town meeting, special town meeting? Is that, that's a done deal. Is that going to change at all or possibility?
I don't think so. I think that's the date.
Okay. That might be a little tough. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jesse. So first up on appointments, we have Joanne Drive subdivision. We have a minor modification for request. And so, Jesse, are you gonna summarize that, or is somebody here?
I'm just looking through our list of who's on here right now.
I know,
do
me
not-
too.
I do not see Chuck. I can give you an update on where we're at.
Okay,
So before I get to the minor modification. So if you recall, a couple weeks ago, Chuck Black of Kendall Homes was on the meeting, and he had originally asked for a minor modification and then said, you know what, I don't want to go through the trouble. I'm gonna get the trees in as soon as possible. I'm gonna try to get the bounds in before I request the occupancy permit. But the one thing that I really need to work out is he needed to change the timing of the conveyance of the open land to not be tied to the occupancy permit. And if you recall, I had talked with our conservation director, Kathy Sfera, at the time, and felt like something like the 6th building permit or somewhere later on would be fine, because the Conservation Commission didn't want to accept land that wasn't fully cleaned up as it was. So since that time, Chuck has installed the street trees. They look great. They look healthy. They're in the right spots. It did a good job there. He's been working with Scott Bracci, who I've been in touch with as well, regarding the trees to be placed along the buffer area for lot 1. In fact, the trees are going to be, I spoke with Chuck and gave the okay to change them from the pines that were originally shown on the plan to a green giant arborvitae, which is still a big, spreading, fast, rather tall tree that I think would actually do better there, because I think the pines were a little too shaded out in that location. So that was just kind of like a red line plan. So they are moving forward. However, it's unclear. He's hoping that by late September, he'll have those trees in. So what I did is I just created this minor modification that we originally put on hold. And I made 2 changes basically to allow for the schedule to change here. So one of those things is there's just a condition in there. And this is the minor modification that we had all reviewed at the time. And I know Malcolm just put it up earlier this afternoon. Basically, when it comes to the installation of trees, it says, either you will install all of the required trees prior to issuance of an occupancy permit, or you will deliver the planning board a letter from that property owner stating that it's okay to put them in after the fact, which were the 2 things we were concerned about. So that just kind of gives us that kind of allows for more flexibility in his schedule, and it doesn't change what our eventual goal and expectation is. And then the same thing for the bounds, for the installation of bounds. And the conveyance of the open land is also still the same on that decision. And actually Chuck is trying to get on right now, so let's see if he can corroborate most of that. Hopefully you won't have to hear all that twice.
Oh, I had a question while we're waiting. I had a question about, Mark had brought up about the debris, the existing debris on that property.
Mhm.
And I forget what our conclusion was or how we were gonna ascertain that it is cleaned up and taken out of there rather than covered up and left there under the ground.
So the way that I heard that, I do recall that, and what I was hearing was more of a global discussion about our rules and regs and decisions going forward about trying to get the open land cleaned up earlier rather than later. In this specific instance, the decision does state that the land has to be cleaned up prior to conveyance, and knowing our, at least in this particular situation, knowing our conservation director and our commission, I expect that the inspection will be done and that everybody will be confident in what they're accepting. But I kind of heard that conversation as a, let's think of that for next time. If I was wrong, just let me know.
No, it definitely was trying to put, I think, standards in place of when that happens. But this decision does cover at least that it has to happen before conveyance, which I think, Meg, right now, we just rely on the inspection beforehand of that. Okay, so Chuck, are you, did you want to speak or share anything? Jesse just gave a summary of what would be modified.
And I apologize, good evening, but I just joined the meeting, so I missed what was said. So I guess, what is the overview, or what are the topics that were discussed already, please?
So the super summary of it is I just gave them an overview of your discussions with Scott, the change in the tree types, the work that you've done so far, and the need for the continued need for a change in the conveyance of the open land being tied to an occupancy permit.
Okay, and so again, we have installed the street trees on lot 1.
Mhm.
The bounds have been ordered. Probably will go in a couple of weeks, but of course we have bond monies for the bounds. Kathy and I have been in conversation continually, and again, we'll definitely take care of the open space. And as far as Scott and I in the back have agreed on what we're doing on the scope of work, and he and I are going to meet this Friday morning, agree on the placement of the trees and put them in. And I think Jesse's aware that some of the trees will be on, in essence, lot 1 and not in the buffer zone. And that is per what Scott wants. So we're trying to be a good neighbor and put the trees in where he wants and the trees he wants. So, and the other thing I would just say to the board is that although a couple of months ago you were nice enough to release $75,000 from the bond, I have not gone and taken that money. And of course, we've done a lot of work since. So right now, the town is very well financially protected because we are way over bonded. So I would like to know tonight, if possible, that I'm all set. Once I complete lot 1, I can have the buyers close and occupy. So that's my succinct recap.
Okay, so I think for the board, what's at hand here is the changes that are being asked as a minor mod, one have to do with trees on lot one, which clearly we were leaning towards what the abutter wanted or preferred. And then the other items are really schedule items in terms of when things take place. So look for any comments on whether or not you consider that a minor mod, or if you have any other questions about it. Don't all speak at once. So I'll ask more directly. Does everyone feel that this fits in the category of a minor modification? Meg says yes, John's nodding yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
I will agree.
okay. And any questions on those items? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to classify the request as a minor modification.
Any questions?
We need Karen.
Make the motion that we consider the request by Mr. Black of Kendall Homes to make to consider his request a minor modification.
Do I
Second,
hear it? All right. Any other discussion on that topic? If not, we'll take a roll call vote. Again, categorizing it as a minor modification. So Nancy,
Yes,
John,
yes,
Meg,
And
and I. Okay, so now that it is a minor modification, I think looking for, also, Jesse basically looked to write this up very quickly so that we can do it all in one shot. So looking for any feedback on that.
I didn't have any feedback other than the typo that I sent you, Malcolm, of the two T's, the double T, I mean, other than that, I'm okay with it.
Actually, for Jesse and I's benefit, can you remind us exactly where that is in the text?
My recollection is it's 7.9, and it's the last condition, and it's the first line in italics, and it says the.
oh, that's right, I saw that too.
It was on page 3.
Yep. And then just so the board knows, condition 7.6 regarding the building permit, for the open land conveyance, that was agreed upon at that last discussion that it would be the 6th building permit.
Mm-hmm.
I just still have my note in there. I just have to update that section.
All right. Any other comments or questions on the minor mod decision?
I have a question on tree planting. I think it's structured so that trees will basically go in before lots are sold. And so does that question, I guess, to Chuck Black, does that mean that you'll be putting in a bunch of trees this fall prior to construction so that you're able to release these lots in spring and avoid the summer, challenge for these trees?
Well, we have been proactive, and on lot 1, we planted the trees, and the tree warden inspected them and gave us a thumbs up and said we did a great job. No other town that I recall working in requires this. As far as the rest of the lots that we're building, I'm going to be candid and say I doubt very much that we will have trees planted when I come to all of you and ask to move people in. However, we are bonded. So I'm going to be probably asking for another minor modification on 2 or 3 or 4 of the lots this winter so that people can move into their new homes.
And it sounds like we're taking the approach that if it comes to that, we basically require a letter saying, depending on where they're being placed, people will allow it. Am I reading that wrong, Jesse?
Yeah, it's basically,
Yeah.
obviously there's gonna be a lot of, people are gonna be moving in at different times if they haven't, if the street trees can't be placed at that time. The board was wanting to ensure that the developer had the right to go on the land and put the trees in. Not all of the street trees all of the time are in the public right of way, if that's the reason for that. So it just gives Kendall Holmes the flexibility to be able to make it work and for the planning board to know that there's not going to be some argument over the location or the type of trees later on.
So I'm wondering aloud, can we avoid future minor modifications in some fashion so that we don't have to go through this process for every lot or a number of lots as this subdivision gets sold out? So I'm also looking for invitation of comment from Chuck as to how we can structure this in a way that we don't have to meet to change our decision and yet make it possible to deal with this desire.
Well, other than lot 1, if I were to put the trees in now, which is an ideal time for planting, there is too much heavy construction going on and those trees will get damaged. So that doesn't make sense. And if I have a couple people that want to move in the first quarter of next year, and if the board wants me to get a letter from them saying Chuck's going to plant 4 trees and I have their permission, that's fine. But, with all due respect, some of your rules and regs are not practical. And my take is if I've bonded this and I've over bonded the job, I'm here until I get this road accepted. So as long as the buyer and the customer says, yeah, I can go on their land, I don't know what else to say to you.
So Mark, I think based on what you're suggesting, we could add language to 7.3.1, the second condition, that would basically say, let's see, prior to issuance of occupancy, or, I guess it could be worded similar to what you did with the other one, Jesse, no?
Yeah, prior to issuance or alternatively, you mean?
Yeah.
Letter? Yeah. Yep.
I think that would address your concern, Mark.
Yes, I guess so.
John and
Or-
Meg,
Or
Nancy,
some kind of requested, permission from the landowner if necessary, that they're authorized to step on the land and put in the trees.
John, Nancy, Meg, any thoughts on that?
I think that's reasonable. Because I do agree that these aren't good times to just put trees in, and yet people want to move into their homes. So if there's some agreement with the homeowner that we can take and say, okay, later, I agree with that.
And Chuck, just for your context, we're fairly cautious about these things because we've been in a situation where they weren't planted and then we didn't have acknowledgement of permission, and then people were freaking out and basically saying they didn't want them. And so I think just the letter would just be an acknowledgement and giving permission. So I think that is a good compromise in terms of allowing more flexibility on the timing of when they're planted, so that the timing makes sense, but also so that we avoid the situation that we've had with other developments.
Sounds great to me. Again, I know that the street that I live on in Bilton and Southborough, the 20 street trees I planted when I was all done with the home construction, all done, put the 20 trees in. The 20 trees look beautiful now, and none of them got damaged. So I know if I put all the trees in now, trucks are going to back into them, things are going to happen.
Understood.
And so, but I agree, we want to have control so that we don't have a problem homeowner saying no.
And this will then allow you that flexibility without having to come for future modifications.
Which is wonderful.
And I'll just supplement, one of the difficulties we encountered was that homeowners quickly put in an irrigation system, and that was the big complaint about not wanting their lawns disturbed. And so it's just kind of hard to do much about that after they put a lot of money into their lawn and an irrigation system.
Understood.
Okay.
I had a question. Do you plan on marking the specific areas on each lot where the trees will grow, so there is no haggling with the neighbor, with the home buyer about where the trees are going to go?
Well, I will say this to you. On lot 1, where we planted the trees, I would say we had 20 emails or phone calls with a tree warden by the time we finally agreed on the species and the exact location. And again, never went through all that effort in another town. So we continue to do as much as we possibly can to be a friendly developer, conscientious, and a good neighbor. So if we need to stake the trees before I sign another deed, I can certainly do that.
Thinking back, I would prefer that myself. I also had a question about the boundary markers. That is not a discussion topic. The boundary markers go in exactly where the boundary markers should be. I mean, is it an established location already?
They have to go in where the surveyor places them and where they are in the plan. There's no choice. And again, I started a month ago trying to get the bounds for lot 1, but with supply chain issues, I can't get any bounds right now.
Yeah. That is more of a timing issue. I guess I look for other comment. Meg is proposing that he stake the locations. I guess I look for other comment from John, Nancy, or Mark.
Sounds like a kind of comprehensive consultation with the tree warden may be useful for everybody between Chuck and the tree warden.
Well, they've discussed location already, right?
Only with lot 1, Nancy.
Oh, okay.
Sound
They're the
like it'd
town
be,
trees. Yeah.
Preemptive and have the discussion with the tree warden about all of the trees and get that over with in one shot, rather than to argue about them for every lot. That seems like an
Yeah.
awful lot of work.
I mean, I'm planning to do just what we did this last time. Once lot 1 was really roughed in, the house was being constructed, you really get a sense of what the development's going to look like. And I'm sure that lots 2, 3, 4 will start to come into their own in a similar time frame. And at that point, I can be in touch with Chuck and say, hey, let's have Bruce just come take a look and do the same 10-minute conversation we had on site for lot 1. I don't see any problem to doing that again, as long as I'm, working with Chuck to keep an eye on it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it can be done now, really, until the lots are roughed in and you kind of have a sense, and the tree warden has a sense, and so I don't know that we should say they should be staked in now, but I think if we can agree on the process, that similar to what we just did, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and we specifically did that because in the decision, we said, if they don't necessarily have to be a 40-foot intervals, that we'd be willing to talk about clustering them, so that's why we
Yeah.
had that.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with kind of our process going forward, as long as the board is.
Meg, are you comfortable with that?
Did you say me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just feel more comfortable if it was already established before the person bought the property, just to avoid any kind of more work that the town officials have to put into this.
I think our process as it stands today is that it gives the tree warden room for input as to where it makes sense. I just don't know that they would be able to identify the locations today and that they would make sense. That's my only concern.
Right, and I get that. I mean, that's certainly logical. I agree with that. I'm just saying, before the sale of a lot, I mean, somebody's got to get an idea of what their lot is going to be like, and that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't mind the trees being staked out.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on the decision?
Nope.
If not, I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve the minor modification decision as revised.
Second.
Okay. So
Was
I
that
move
the motion?
that we approve the minor modification 1 for the Joanne Drive definitive subdivision, plan conservation development and erosion control special permit, inclusion of affordable housing and site plan approval with, as amended.
And Jesse, you're comfortable with what we talked about today for amendments?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other discussion before we take a roll call vote? All right, so Nancy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Meg, and I. All right, thank you.
Lori,
Thanks, Chuck.
could I just go off for 15 seconds and try to come back with my screen and
Sure, sure,
you.
go ahead. While we're waiting, do we want to, can we just do a schedule update, Jesse, just to remind us?
Sure.
And am I the only one? Can you guys hear that echo of me?
Slightly.
There is an echo.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where it was coming from, and I still can't.
tell
Usually you
where
can
it
see
comes-
someone else's screen light up and you can catch it, but I'm not
He
sure.
was Chuck Black and he since.
It was Chuck
left the
Black.
meeting.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
okay.
gone and it's just stopped.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
Oh, Chuck is gone. Rats. I wanted to ask him a question.
Oh,
Oh, rats.
all right. So clearly we talked about next week already. Do we just want to run through October's schedule?
Yeah, let me pull up my schedule here. So remind me, what is it? which is Columbus Day weekend?
I think it's the 10th, 11th, the,
Yeah, 10th,
10,
11th,
11,
12th.
okay. I know in the past, we've
11.
shied away from Tuesdays after a long weekend. I know that was mainly a former members issue. I don't know if we still have that issue, but otherwise I was planning based on our discussion for 5, 12, and 19. Keep in mind our discussion earlier that we do have that Thursday, the 7th forum. So if you wanted to skip the Tuesday, the 5th, and just do the Lower Village Forum on the 7th, just, you know, recognizing that's 2 meetings in a week otherwise.
Well, do we have a meeting on the 28th of September?
Yes, I believe so.
Do we,
Yeah.
Malcolm? Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we meet on the 5th, that will be like
That's a
five
lot.
weeks
Yeah.
in a row.
Okay, yep.
thanks for that reminder, John. So the fact is, if we're meeting on the 28th, then I think, yeah, it sounds like it's okay to skip.
Fair enough.
All right, okay. So sorry, Nancy, we just did a little sidebar since you were.
No, that's okay. I'm so sorry. I think the screen is shorting out. Okay.
No problem. All right, so next up, we're meant to review the NANS market modification review. So I know we have lots of people from the public here, and I do want to make a statement before we begin. Just to let people know that this is not a public hearing. This is a public meeting, which means all are welcome. But unlike the public hearing, we're not necessarily here to take everyone's input. This was meant to be a discussion amongst the planning board. Now, I understand that there's lots of input, and we've certainly received lots of correspondence. But before we, sorry about that. Before we look to entertain any input, I want to have a conversation with the planning board first about the information we've been given. Second, whether or not modifications are within the bounds of the decision, or minor modification or a major modification. And so just putting it out there up front that until the planning board has that conversation, I'm really not going to call on anyone from the public. Any questions before, based on my statements? Okay, so, and I'll say a couple more things for context. So again, this isn't a public hearing because we've had a public hearing. The public hearing was closed. We issued a decision. And this is really about trying to review something that was part of the conditions of that decision that we had basically asked for. It's very common for us to ask for different plan modifications and then ask to see those and approve those before work is done. So that's pretty much where we are today. And so that's where I'm taking us. So first off, any questions on my comments and context? All right. So with that, I'll dive in for the planning board members. You know, we have been given information from the applicant, and we've also have some information from our staff. And so I'll first look to get comments and reactions to the information we've been given.
I'd like to make a general comment that there's enough heat along with the light of this decision that it might merit calling it a significant or major modification so that there's an opportunity for a genuine hearing and to hear people out.
John, Nancy, Meg?
There's so many pieces to this. And I do agree, there's so many voices from the public too. But I do feel that the owner has put in a lot of effort to meet the conditions that we put out there. And I just don't think everyone is going to be pleased with every aspect of it. So it's difficult.
John or Meg?
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe we should try to go through one issue at a time if we can kind of break it up that way and talk about the issue, try to at least
Yeah.
look at the individual things and then maybe look at the bigger picture.
Meg, any general comment before we?
I think that I will hold off for now.
Okay. So why don't we take, 1 second. Hold on. I have two.
I mean, maybe we can start with Jesse's memo, which
Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of breaks it down into what the pieces are.
understood. Hold on, I gotta find that because I have too many windows open. Okay, we'll go one by one then. So let's start with the lattice screen on the patio.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that as long as it's not being used for seating, then it doesn't seem to need the screening at that point. And so, you know, if in the future it is used, then this would have to be changed. But
now, didn't he mention it would be used for some type of retail function in the future, but that is not considered seating?
okay,
I'm trying to look for it. Might be on his part here.
I think the challenge there is that we didn't actually have any other use for the patio in the application.
Right.
So clearly we didn't condition it because nobody asked for it.
Mhm.
Okay, and the memo he sent to us at the bottom of, it says page 3, very much at the bottom, it says, while this area is pre-approved for 14 seats, we plan to use this space for retail sales, barbecue grill sales, and other food-related outdoor fixtures. So I'm not sure what that really means, but it sounds like there is a use. It says outdoor retail activities on the patio. But-
Wasn't there some kind of statement that they didn't want to put up the lattice work yet because they needed to be able to get back there with equipment or something?
you know, something
I
like
think they said because there's no use for it right now, they weren't going to put it up, but you know, I don't know about future.
And again, anything about the future, I guess I would caution us because there was no proposal in the application about having whatever Nancy just said on the back patio. So if there were to be that use on the patio, I certainly would consider that needing a modification.
I agree.
So my question is, why would we not, like, I feel like I don't want to have to keep coming back and coming back and coming back to this decision. It's making me dizzy. I mean, if we stipulated lattice work for that patio, I don't get why we just don't say right now, put the lattice work up and get the provisions that were in this document when we granted it, get it done and get it done, no matter what the future use is.
I think in general, one of the challenges I see is that the use is changing. So the original, not this past one, the original decision asked for seating on the patio. Clearly, because of that, we basically indicated that that would be a placement for seating allowed seating in our current decision. But now the fact is they don't really plan to use it that way. So I hear what you're saying, Meg. At the same time, if they're not using it that way, then for seating, there's not necessarily something to screen on the patio. Now, the fact that he's put future uses in the memo to us, to me, again, is a completely different story, because that's not something that we made any decision about or put any conditions around. And to me, that would have to come back as a modification.
The end of that paragraph, he says, along with the lattice trellis, we also plan to install landscaping along parts of the northern property line. So that sounds like he plans to put that in when he starts having any kind of active use back there, but we would just be assuming that. I don't know.
I mean, a follow-up question that I have of you guys is, okay, so there's no lattice work up. So if there were going to be people sitting at a table, then the lattice work would have to go up. But if they're using that for retail space, do I really want to look at grills being sold and, you know, a lot of equipment out on that patio? Not particularly. I mean, to me, that's a visual violation that would be the same as people and wanting privacy to the people.
But Meg, I'm actually taking that one step further and saying he can't do retail on the outdoor patio because it went by the application to begin with.
Right.
And not to be a pain in the butt, I get what you're saying, but it just means that we're going to have to address this once again. And
Right, but again, we can only react to the uses we've been given. We cannot write a decision based on anything he can dream up.
Right.
Right, we can't really assume a future
What the future
possibility.
use would be.
You don't know what that's
Right.
gonna be. You know, they could change their
So-
mind.
The question at hand for this item is, are we okay with the lattice work not going up if there's no seating there? Forget about the future use for a minute. Are we okay if he's not doing seating out there to not put up the lattice work? And suppose he did use it for seating in the future, clearly the lattice work would have to go up. The main question really is, are we okay that the lattice work doesn't go up if he's not using it?
Yeah, I think so, because what would be the purpose of the lattice if there's nothing going on in the patio? So it seems like it provides no value to anybody. And I agree with you. I mean, if there is some use that changes there, they have to come back and then we can change that. But, you know, sure, Meg's right. You know, we don't want to do a mod every 6 months.
Unfortunately, we can only react to the information we're given.
Right. Right. We can't assume he's going to do that. That might just be an idea they're floating, you know?
So on a related item, maybe I'm a little confused then, because if there's going to be picnic tables and Adirondack chairs in the back there,
Well-
is there no fence along that back?
Yeah, so
border? And
that's-
then
We're
that's a
not quite,
different
yeah,
issue.
no, that clearly needs a conversation.
Okay,
So we're
okay.
not quite there yet. We're definitely gonna get there. Jordan, did you want to make a comment about the patio?
I'm happy to put the lattice up. It's just in our way with some things we're moving in the back. I put it up, but I got to take it back down. I'm emptying a greenhouse. I'm just doing work out there, and it's dangerous and in the way for me to travel between my greenhouse and my shed. That's the only reason I haven't put it up. I'm happy to put it up. I have it. I have the stands for it. It's ready to be installed, but I'm trying to get cleaned up before the fall, before I put it up, so that I don't have to take it down every 2 days when I need to push my snow blower across the backyard.
Okay, so let's hear the planning board opinion of, are you okay with the lattice work not being there if there's no seating there?
Yeah.
John says yes, Nancy says yes. Meg?
I say no, I would like the lattice work to go up permanently, but I get what Jordan is saying about the convenience right now, and I am okay with that. But I would like to see some kind of a time frame for when that goes up permanently and stays up there.
Mark?
It can't ever go up permanently. In order for me to move things in and out of the basement, it would have to come down periodically. The way the property is designed, I can't access the basement with any large piece of furniture or equipment without taking it down.
Mark?
Friendly to Meg's comments about having a timeline to have it up.
So what I think that from what I'm hearing, we clearly want it up when there's going to be seating. And I'm using the word seating because that was what was in the decision. So clearly, if there's seating being used, the lattice work has to be up. And I think that should be the black and white condition, no?
Yeah, that's the primary point. That's right.
Okay. Okay. Are we okay with that item? Should we move on? Or does anybody else have a comment about that item? Karen?
Thank you. I'm the abutting neighbor. My back view looks right into his backyard, into the patio. And I understand why he may not want to put up the lattice fence, but if that's not going to be put up, so I don't have to look at what's going on there. And I would request that a fence be installed along my lot line of similar height and design as what's along the Brian McCarthy lot line. Thank you.
Okay. So does anybody, I think that goes back to Meg and Mark, your points of let's get the time frame. And regardless of whether there are times when it needs to be taken down, that we have some sort of condition around when it has to be up. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about seating arrangement, which I think is really the biggest, probably the biggest topic of discussion. So looking for comment from the board based on the information we were given.
I don't know. I don't see a problem with it. I just don't. It's set back the proper distances. Each table holds a small number of people that doesn't exceed the total seating area. You know, maybe the Adirondack chair that's farthest in the back doesn't have to be there, but I have no problem with the ones that are to the left side of the building. That was sort of a creative compromise. I don't think it's bad.
John, Meg, or Mark?
Well, I think there's some advantage in spreading things out, you know, and using these other areas from a concentration of use point of view. I'm not sure if those areas are protected enough, and maybe that was the point from the neighbors, like the side on the east where we had talked about having a fence and things and keeping away 30 feet. If there's no border fence in the north section, then the 30 feet is probably not enough. Or maybe there needs to be a fence, because otherwise, you know, then I think it's more of a nuisance to the neighbors.
And that's that back chair I'm talking about too.
Mhm.
Meg or Mark?
I'm okay with having seating from the patio be on the west and south side of the house, not consolidated in with the parking area seating. And I would suggest actually that also the plan have the 30-foot line drawn in as a useful thing, not only for the building inspector, but also for the staff at the restaurant, so they can tell where they should and should not place seating, as doubtless these picnic tables may well move around.
Meg?
I'm pretty much with Mark on that one. I mean, I think that it's a 30-foot buffer, and that's 30 feet. I mean, it's not up for compromise. 30 feet, chairs, tables, everything, 30 feet away from the edge of the property line. No ands, ifs, or buts about it.
Right, but what I'm saying is that that would be fine on the east side where there's a fence, but on the north side, there's no fence back there, right? So I'm not sure 30 feet is enough. I don't know the contours and I can't remember what the vegetation is back there, but that may not be enough to protect the neighbors to 30 feet, putting stuff in the back there. I mean, the stuff on the more on the west side, that's probably far enough away that it's not going to be much of an impact. But stuff on the north side might be, you know, depending on the ground contours and the existing vegetation.
We don't have any furniture on the north side of the property.
Well, the plan that we have has Adirondack chairs back there.
Yeah, that's
And
on the west
picnic
side of the
tables, too.
property bordering Minister Pond.
Okay, well, I guess it depends on what you
North
call
side
the
of
north and the
property
west.
would be the backyard. There are tables back there, but they're being refinished. They're not for guest use.
Okay, so then I'll just say that on the west side, on the map that we have, does have some Adirondack chairs on the northwest piece of the property. And I'm wondering whether those are too close to the property line there.
It's 100 feet plus from the north property line. It
100?
may just be tough to look at. I was trying to get the best shapes I could to put in the diagram.
Okay, I don't know what the scale is on this map.
So I'm in a butter on the north.
Hold on, I have not actually made comments yet. If we could just hold on for one moment, please. So I hear everyone's comments, and I think one of the challenges we have is that the decision basically indicates two places where we wanted the seating to be or would allow it. And what we got was a plan for something different. Now, I'm not saying that those places are good or bad. I'm just saying that we didn't actually discuss those areas in the hearing and making the decision. So I hear some opinions of various places or not places, but I guess one thing that stands out in my mind is really asking the board members, you know, is this basically simply a plan modification showing adherence to our decision, or is this a modification to the application?
You're right. Yeah.
So remember, this review isn't supposed to be about opinions of new things. This review is supposed to be about, we have a plan that shows the modifications in adherence with our decision. So I think that's part of our challenge. Part of the reason why the opinions are all over the place is because frankly, we didn't talk about that.
You're right. Yep.
It was very clear with my lack of intention to use the patio due to the 18-inch drop off. It's dangerous for someone getting out of a table. I'm not sure how that came with the design plan, but after being very adamant about, I have no plans to seat on the patio, that's what was permitted against the ask of having all the seats in one place. So my only recourse was to react to that by going, let me put these tables someplace that's not dangerous, that's completely out of view of any abutters, in a corner of the property that has no property lines and is up against the street. That was the only choice I had after being permitted to do something that I have no intention to do for safety reasons. That's why we didn't ask for that to begin with, because we didn't want that to begin with. But in lieu of seating people on a slate patio with an 18-inch drop off, waiting for someone to break their ankle and fall off of the patio, my compromise is to move the tables even further away, but someplace that can be safely accessed by guests with no danger of falling off of a patio with no railings.
And thanks, Jordan. I appreciate the input. I think unfortunately, when we had the hearing, the input was that there were comments of you were planning to either keep that for private use. So we heard loud and clear that that was not your preference of where you wanted seating. I think we're going, because that was part of an old proposal, but also, and therefore sort of thought through of where things were at. But it was also presented as it was more of a preference thing versus a safety issue. So I guess I go back to the board and look for your input. And I think the question at hand is, do we want to accept some or all of the proposed locations as the updated plan in accordance with our decision, or we can choose to do, our choices are accept it as the updated plan in accordance to the decision, accept it as a minor modification, or basically indicate that it is a major modification. It would need to have a hearing. So those are our three choices. And so I'm looking for planning board input to which of those three. Of course, which of those three?
So I'm looking at this plan that we have, and I'm wondering how specific this is. This is actually that there'll be 4 picnic tables over on the east side and 2 on the west side in the approximate locations where they're listed, or are these sort of more conceptual?
There are four picnic tables in the lawn, each seating 4 guests. In the rear of the property, 2 additional picnic tables, each sitting 4 guests, with the addition of Adirondack chairs, putting both locations below the permitted number.
Mhm.
Again, 3 options. We accept the plan as revised plan in accordance with our decision. We accept the plan as a minor modification, or we deem the plan as needing a modification. I'll make it easy on you. Since Mark doesn't vote, I'll ask for his opinion first.
Actually, with Karen not here, I might be voting on this.
Okay.
I think that there are enough new things that this is not a minor modification. And this particular item points to that particular case because we haven't really explored the uses in that part of the lot. and the sight lines on that end of the lot and the effect on the neighbors.
John?
Yeah, I think I'm with Mark. I mean, although I like the idea of spreading the tables out more, because I think that reduces impact, but we never talked about putting tables anyplace else except on the lawn. So it almost seems to me that we owe the neighbors the right to be able to provide input on that. And so, you know, I'm hesitant to say, yeah, it's a minor.
Nancy?
Okay, I haven't had enough experience with hearings and modifications, but I listened to what everybody said. And yeah, I changed my opinion. I mean, it doesn't really matter if we like it or not. We haven't heard from people on how this affects them, and we haven't looked at it. So I just don't think it can be accepted as is.
Meg?
Surprisingly, I'm a little bit more in the middle here right now. I understand about the tables and chairs being outside. I just feel really strongly about not having to renegotiate or having neighbors call us and saying, oh, well, somebody moved the picnic table and somebody moved the chairs and it's really close and it's really loud, you know? That's what makes me nervous about this. I think that I don't want to keep feeling like I'm a bad person because I want to protect the neighbors in this residentially zoned area. I am nothing against the business, and I don't want to do anything to hurt the business. But I also feel like my first job is to protect the abutters. It makes me nervous. I would like just the example of the yoga class. I mean, I've been to yoga classes. I mean, I thought that we had agreed that there wouldn't be anything loud in the outside. And then when I read this information today, it's a yoga class that was disruptive. I guess I don't want to keep giving an inch and trying to make this work because I sympathize with the business. I'm happy that we have the business. I don't want to keep feeling like I'm a bad person because I want to lay down rules so that we don't have to keep addressing this and the neighbors don't have to feel like they always have a fight every 6 months to protect their residential zoning.
So I guess what I would say is this, and look, I at Dan's a lot, I'm a fan. But what's unusual about this situation is when we get a plan modification that has the updates from our decision, it typically doesn't come with changes from what was proposed. And so Jordan, I know that I am sure you are frustrated in terms of the timing, but the fact is we issued a decision with allowance of where tables could be, and really all that had to happen after that is for you to come back and do the plan modification in accordance with the decision, and then you can go on immediately. I understand that maybe you have new ideas, which I actually like some of those new ideas. The problem that I have is that from a due diligence of public hearings, if you look at our guidelines of what is a minor modification, they typically are administrative or scheduling or things that don't impact abutters. And so it's unfortunately, whether I like the placement of the tables or not, I think just going from a pure what is a modification standpoint, I think I have to err on the side of due diligence. So I think
I'll remove the tables. This is 9 months to provide people a place to eat a sandwich. And I don't profit off these tables. I leased a property with beautiful gardens that people want to enjoy. They bring their children, they eat a salad quietly at lunchtime. I have no financial interest in this. My initial strategy isn't gonna work. And I don't want the abutters to be disturbed. But
But here's the thing,
I
you
can't go
can,
through
you can have a fast path to having some tables by simply bringing us a plan with tables within the guidelines of the decision in the areas. Now, you may not want to put it on the patio, and I understand if you think
Someone's
it's
gonna get hurt.
dangerous. I understand if you think it's dangerous, but you certainly can put
Guardrails.
we had two
Tables on the
areas where you
lawn.
could put tables, and if you bring us a plan with tables in there with these other modifications, you can start having your tables. But unfortunately, what you've brought us is just different enough.
It's 60 feet further away from the abutters. I mean, it's a small business. We're trying to do what we can. And this red tape for 9 months, it's quite, with all due respect, it's ridiculous. You know, I want people to be able to enjoy the grounds, and all I'm looking for is to put a picnic table out. And I'll take them away. And we'll just go with the 4 in the lawn. I can't, I have another business in Sudbury I'm trying to open. I can't go through any more modifications and hearings. This has gone on for the better part of a year. And it's easy. I will take the picnic tables away. I can use them in Sudbury, so we can move on to the next item.
Again, if you simply put the plan, and again, if you decide it's just the lawn tables in that other designated area, then we have the plan and you can start there. And honestly,
Put a table out for my staff or my family to use. Does that require town approval as well? I live there. I live on the property. If I want a table to sit at and have dinner on a Sunday with my family, does that have to get approved? Can I put that? Where can I put that?
I have no comment on that. You could clearly do that, but honestly, as long as customers aren't using it, that's your own business.
What about-
Again,
what about
I
the-
know you're presenting it as we're offering you red tape, but what I'm giving you is if you come back with a modified plan within that decision, you can start right away. If you have other ideas of where they go, then I think that unfortunately, those areas, based on the opinions that I just heard from the board, need to be discussed in a public hearing. That's just due diligence.
No problem. I'll save everyone the trouble. I'll remove the tables. There will be no tables at the rear of the property.
And so are you basically saying the plan that you gave us will be as is, except for the tables and the new
Tables on the
location?
west side of the property, yes.
All right. So with that, planning board, let's continue on to the other issues that are written in the other sections.
So have we approved the 4 tables as placed on the east side?
That's a good point, Nancy. Any comment on those 4 from the planning board members?
As long as they meet the setbacks. It's fine.
And are the chairs included in this? The one that's on the east side? Just so I know.
Yeah, as long as they meet the setbacks and the count, the number, that's what was in the original decision, the decision we just made.
So if he meets the setbacks, maybe he can put another 2 chairs in there or realign the tables, whatever. As long as he meets setbacks, he could fill that with whatever meets the seating number, right?
Correct.
Well, again, all we asked for was the revised plan, so we knew how many seats were going where.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, our discussion is about whether this is a minor modification, right?
Well, so to me, there's 2 choices the applicant has. You know, I think that what I heard from the planning board is that the new locations were a major modification. And I think
Right.
Jordan It's
I'm not gonna
basically
play for
that
you.
he'll take those away. So to me, then we could consider basically approving those that are in that one area along with the other items that we're about to go through, and basically say all of that is within the confounds of the decision. Now, frankly, we would still need an updated plan because we don't want the other seating on the plan. But the applicant has two choices. He can say he wants a modification, or he can basically give us a plan within the confines of the conditions of the decision. And I think what I heard him say is that the 4 tables that are in that designated, the one designated location that we had said, and then we still need to go through the items, could constitute as being within the confines of our decision of updates. Again, I still think we would need an updated plan to take the others away, but at least we will have already discussed those items. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yes, thank you very much. That's helpful.
So I know Nancy is suggesting he could do different things, but the problem is we don't have a plan for different things.
Right.
So right now, we have
And
a plan that has 4 tables in that area, and we can continue on with the other items. Okay. I see your hand up, Mark, and I'm gonna say that if you have a question about what we're doing, that's great. If this is about placement of seating, I think we hopefully have nixed that in the bed, so go ahead.
It's a small question.
Okay.
It's the 4 tables and 1 Adirondack chair in that area, correct?
And that's what Nancy was trying to clarify.
And because that's what the schematic says, and I just want to be clear, that's
Yeah.
all that's authorized is 4 tables. And I'm new to this. I'm the new abutter, Mark
Oh,
Exter. I had bought the Estabrook estate. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. So I just wanted, what is the maximum personnel there? I thought it was 21.
Well,
I don't need to know it off the top of my head.
again, the tables right now on the plan, if it's 4 and the Adirondack chairs, it would basically be 4 times 4 plus, is it 2?
2.
No.
Yeah, they're showing 18.
18.
They were originally permitted for 35.
Okay, and 35 for that spot or the problem?
No,
I'm
between
way
two,
behind.
between 2 spots, but they're not going to use the other spot. And again, so
But it's not gonna be 35 put on that spot.
I'm trying to basically get us to discuss something that is in the confines of the existing decision so that something may happen with that decision. He can always come back and ask for something else, but at this point, I'm trying to keep us with what we see on the plan and what is in the confines of the decision.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, so planning board members, any other comments on the 4 tables and the 2 Adirondack chairs? Okay. I'm gonna keep going. And as I do, Jesse, do you have any concerns about the direction that we're going?
No.
Okay. All right, let's see. Sorry, I know I've lost my place. All right, so 7, 9. Any comment from the planning board members on 7, 9?
Fine with me.
Yep.
Same here.
Okay. Any Any comments on the planning board from 7:12?
Can I ask a question? Just does everyone always, with a special permit, does everybody always have the right to come back indefinitely to ask us to change our decision?
Yes. That doesn't mean we need to allow it, but anybody can ask to do anything. All right, any other planning board member comments on 7:12? All right. Let's get to, let's see. I think 7:13 is a moot point because we aren't talking about. We aren't talking about any other locations except for the one. Does anybody have a comment about that? All right. I see 3 abutters hands up. I will take your comments, but just I'm gonna keep it short. This is not a public hearing, so Dave, go ahead.
Hi, Lori, thanks. First, I applaud your efforts in keeping this on track tonight. Mine's actually a clarification question, because so far this whole line of discussion has been around tables and seating. Is it tables and how many people considered a table, or is it head count? Because there's been a huge issue with that.
It's a combination.
We only have 4 tables, but we can have 1,000 blankets, and pretty soon it looks like Woodstock, but there's still only 4 tables.
There's 2 different things going on here. The tables we asked for because we wanted to understand how many people would be sitting where, meaning we wanted to know the table types or the seating types, but there is an overall outdoor capacity in general as well. So I guess that's my take.
Right.
I don't
I agree
think,
with that. The tables
Yeah.
are just the seating, but there's a cap on a head count. So whether they're sitting on the lawn in a blanket or sitting at a picnic table, that's still part of the head count.
okay. Sarah?
So thanks, Lori. And yeah, I applaud you too. This is hurting cats in a way like I can't even imagine. So points for managing the cats. I think something that we have observed, and I think part of the management plan needs to include or acknowledge, is that while we are saying, you know, as far as the tables, yep, there are 4 tables, they seat 6 people normally. So that is, you know, 6 seats times 4 plus 2, we're over the 21 as far as allowed seating for what is being provided. But what I also see is there's a management plan that suggests we will have somebody full-time in place specifically to be helping customers and managing that plan. So I would hope that we are acknowledging in that management plan that that full-time person will potentially be in the position of turning away customers from sitting on that lawn. And I don't think that is part of the current observations. And I think I would like to ensure that that was added someplace so that there was no expectation that, hey, you know, we have the seats, they took them, and this poor person who now has the job of turning them away is knowingly in that position.
Thank you. All right. Mark, unless you have a comment specifically on the item that we're talking about, I'm gonna hold off for a moment and try to get us through a few more items.
Well, my real comment is that, the 30-foot buffer, 30-foot zone around the property in that parking lot area. There's no way of, he's not doing any way of enforcing how that's going to be separated. There's kids playing in that ditch all the time, sitting on the rocks down there. It's just a hazard. There should be some kind of some kind of fencing or something to stop people from going down into that area, even to sit on blankets and stuff like that. I'm just, he was talking about safety before, falling off the deck. This is a safety issue that he should be, doing something about as well, and it should be thought about. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say for now. Thanks.
Okay, and just to remind the public, the decision's already written and the
Yes, I know.
conditions are already in there. We aren't necessarily opening up to have new conditions put on. I'm just trying to figure out if the information we've been given fits within those confines or not. That's what we're here to do tonight.
Yeah,
Just a reminder.
I'd be curious if the DEP allows anybody in the buffer zone of a public water supply, which is where the picnic tables on the other side are. But I know you're not discussing that tonight. Thanks, Laurie.
Mark Dexter, go ahead, and then we're going to continue.
Thank you. From 713 is where you stop. And it says plans are now in place to promptly install the 8-foot fence. Going back to April 4th, Wes sent a letter saying they were building a fence. It's been 163 days. Promptly is long gone. When is this fence going to be built?
Thank you for actually letting us know. That's not built yet.
I know you don't have a result. This is Wes and Jordan, but this is, when's it gonna happen?
To save them the time, I can actually speak to that. Wes Fisher did get in touch with the planning office maybe a week or two ago now to say that they have a contractor lined up. Building permits are in place for the fence on the eastern line. Contractor is lined up. The contractor had a COVID issue, and I believe the date given was September 18th. They were going to start work. That's what Wes Fisher told the planning department.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Malcolm.
This is Wes. Yeah, I just talked to our contractor about his situation, and his doctor told him to hold off. I think the start will be next Monday, but it has to do with his doctor clearing him. He's supposed to be quarantined.
Okay, thanks, Wes. I'm gonna jump to, I think I had said that 7:15 seemed like a moot point because we're only talking about one area. Does any planning board member have any comments on 7:15? And I think okay, I'm gonna keep going. 7:18.
Can you go back to 15?
Yeah.
I had a question about why chairs were not included with the things that should be kept out of the setback area. And I think that should be definitely included in that proposal and note.
So I certainly understand what you're saying. We are not necessarily here to, given where we are, we're not necessarily here to revise the decision. The decision is what it is. We're trying to figure out if this plan meets the intent of that decision. And I think what you're pointing out, Meg, is that our intent was, when we say tables, we're talking tables and chairs, now that we understand outer chairs are involved. Okay. 7:18.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with low low wattage solar lights being put around.
And
Agreed.
clearly, if something got installed that was outside the bylaw, we would actually have the enforcement officer take notice.
Right.
Okay, 721.
Seems fine.
Fine with me.
All right, 727.
What happens when the vines are out of season? What's the screening then?
Yeah,
But if it's just to screen the outdoor season, I don't know.
I mean, I do think that if there's something actually growing there, it can offer more protection.
right. And I
That-
wonder what, sorry,
Go ahead, John.
you know, what, you know, we're talking about outdoor seating, so it's not being used in the winter time. So there won't be people out there. So what's the overlap between the growing season of the vines and the use season of the outdoor seating? So it may overlap completely or most of the time. So it, you know, the vine might actually be more interesting kind of barrier. So you know, it sounds like it might be a good thing.
Meg, were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say, I mean, the sweet potato vines and the vines, I mean, if I had to say anything, I would say the vines turn red and dry out and die, you know, late September, early October. I mean, I'm still swimming a lot of times at Lake Boone at the end of October, you know, and into November. So I disagree with what John said that would overlap. I think that they're not going to come out and be full. I mean, I would eat outside in April, you know, and these vines are not going to be growing fully enough to block anything in April and May. So I don't see that as a solution. I think that it's an interesting idea to put a vine and some kind of fencing in addition to possibly trees along the back wall of the fence. But yeah, I just don't want to expect a lot out of the vines to hide things when I'm not convinced that that's going to hide much of anything.
Yeah.
Except maybe for a couple of months.
So Jesse, based
Yeah.
on the wording of the condition, would this basically need a minor modification in order to even be possible?
Yeah, I think this is unfortunately another part of the submission that's pretty much the same as the seating arrangement, which is it's a creative idea. I think it's an interesting one. I think it would be pretty cool. But nonetheless, it's different than what was approved. Just for the sake of it, the condition as it stands right now was the plan shall be modified for review and approval by the board to show additional evergreen trees and clustered locations along the existing fence line, specifically positioned to reduce views of the proposed use from abutting properties along Crescent Street. So that was the original decision language from a few months back, and then the 7-foot vine fence was the proposal in the plan line.
So our our options are accept this within the confines of our decision, accept it as a minor modification, or don't accept it and basically go back and communicate, plant the trees. It's pretty clear he's not going to come back for a modification, a major modification is for this one. So I think our decisions here are either accept it within the confines of the decision, accept it, deeming it a minor, looking to make a minor modification for this small change, or going back and indicating he needs to comply with the trees. Where do people stand?
Do we know where this is? Or where it would be? Where is it proposed?
Got the pictures up in his response. It looks like the back of the lawn area abutting the Crescent Street properties.
Page 5 of his submission. There's a photo of it. I believe it's got a like a yellow top, if I'm looking at it right. It's a
Yeah.
small photo.
So the fence is already 7 feet high. How high would the vine fence be?
It says 7 feet also.
So it's sort of masking the look of the fence primarily, is what I'm thinking.
Right.
So I suspect, but I don't remember, that we might have been interested in trees because the abutting properties are by and large higher than the area of picnic tables, and they're essentially looking down on it. And I can't remember, but I suspect we were thinking about having something higher than a fence eventually mask the visibility of the lower area from people gazing down from a hill.
A good point, Mark. I mean, I don't have any problem with the vines. I just don't know that it's gonna do.
It's not a replacement.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so it sounds like we're not against having the vines, but it would need to be in addition to the trees. Either the trees only or the trees and the vines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, agree.
Okay.
Question, is this the east side of the property where the new fence is going?
No, it looks like it's the rear that's going along the Crescent Street properties, right?
There's no room for trees there. There's huge trees there that go up 100 feet. I don't know where trees would go. There's no place to plant trees on that side of the property.
Well, where are you proposing to put the vine fence?
I was under the impression that it was the east side where the new fence is going, because it's the only part of the property that's not already obstructed by giant trees.
Jesse, can you keep us honest and for this 727?
Let me just make sure that I'm reading it correctly.
I remember reading that and I was confused by it because the property line abutting Crescent Street has enormous trees planted.
So it does, the condition specifically says along the existing and proposed fence line. So that north and eastern line. There was some landscaping that was required as part of the original decision way back when that was going to be planted in front of the fence. Of course, the fence never went up. We all know that story. So yeah, this was tied to the existing and proposed fence line. So this was a waiver for the landscape plan. I think the expectation was some sort of plan just showing where additional trees could go. I think it said something like including but not limited to eastern hemlock, white cedar, white pine, balsam fir, stuff like that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, but that condition, I think, came out of the original.
So there was some requirements for landscaping in the original plan. There was a landscape plan. What we heard at the public hearing was that there was still good sight lines from some of the neighboring properties. And so after hemming and hawing and much discussion, the planning board thought that let's see a plan showing some additional trees in those specific locations where they would make the most impact. I mean, that's essentially what that condition is saying, just for clarification.
Okay.
It wasn't anything like every 40 feet or every 10 feet.
Right.
It was in clustered locations. Yeah.
So from a plan modification standpoint in the conditions, this is basically saying, show us where? Meaning, is there a plan modification with that condition?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, so we can assume that these pictures that were sent by Sarah Cleary, looking from her house over across into the parking lot with the woman with her salad. That is the picture that we have on 727, which trees seem like they would help obscure that view, don't you think?
So I think the point of that condition is basically plant a few trees in the places that are most visible to abutters. And so the plan modification that goes with that condition basically is just saying, show us where.
Is there a height requirement on these trees? Because I'm imagining planting trees would take 5 years to obscure any view.
And Jesse, what is the typical, I mean, we typically look at trees as longer term.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the rules and regs in front of me, but I want to say they're going to be, it would be longer term. I mean, I think it's around 5 feet, something of that nature on some of the evergreen trees. I can double check and find for you. But one of our comments that you're looking at the memo there was the reason why we had thought that maybe the vining fence would be a good idea is that you wouldn't necessarily have to wait several years for them to grow in. So that comes with the territory. Trees are not instantly huge, obviously. So I can find out though for sure what the actual requirement is in our regs in terms of height.
Okay. So just to close that one out, it basically means that we were expecting you to take a look at where the most visible sight lines were and then put on the plan where potential trees would be and how many. So that's just a typical plan modification, I would say.
And that's the north and the east side, right?
Yes.
Correct. By the way the decision is written, that's right. Yep.
All right, I'm going to move on to 729. Planning board members, any comments on 729? And I'll get to you, Wes, in a moment.
Mhm.
Fine with me.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
And then there's really only a few items left. So anything from the planning board on 739 through 745. So if I'm it, in terms of the decision as it stands, it looks like we're good with all of the plan modifications as presented, except for placement of those trees we just talked about.
And the seating.
Updating, which is really just removing the seating that we aren't talking about anymore. And then I think though, just to make this easier from a lattice screen patio standpoint, Jesse, would we have to do a minor mod for that, or could we just simply put a note on the plan that basically said, and it's kind of a moot point, but I think we're looking at from Mark and Meg's comment, timeline of lattice, and then a statement of limited use in times that it's not up.
Yeah, no, I mean, the short answer is I don't think it needs to be in a minor modification, especially given the way the original decision was written. So if you're looking just for a basic clarification on the plan of what the intent is, I think that's fine.
Okay, so then essentially it's the plan as was presented to us with a note about the lattice, placement of trees, and removal of the other locations of tables. Any planning board members, did I misinterpret anything? Go ahead, Meg.
I had a question about 7.38. I guess the whole parking issue makes me a bit nervous. I think that these are good intentions, but I have certainly seen cars parked along the road. So I don't know where somebody was that day that was supposed to be in charge of that, who was telling those cars not that they couldn't even stay there for 2 minutes. It makes me nervous that that the comment was that they would have somebody who was in charge of traffic and would be outside. I mean, what if somebody calls off? You know, what if, I mean, people are having a hard time finding employees these days, there is no reassurance here for me that the traffic is going to be controlled in this parking lot and that the numbers and the occupancy numbers are going to be controlled. I just don't see it. And it makes me very concerned. And I feel like it's kind of just, oh, well, whenever it happens and the parking lot's really full and people are parking out in the street, oh, well, we're sorry, we'll get somebody to take care of that. I mean, there's always going to be an excuse if, and oh, we're sorry if there isn't some really concrete expectation of traffic control and occupancy control built in.
Is this something where public safety could get involved and put up a no parking here sign like they do around the orchards on the streets? And it just becomes known that there's no parking out there?
I think that should have been done several months ago myself, and I think they should be permanent signs, very visible and very permanent, not just these cardboard signs that look like you can, go around them.
Right. I mean, maybe that's an option then.
I think there should be no parking signs on both sides of the street for several lots up and down from that location. This is also to help prevent commercial trucks and semi trucks from parking on the road to unload instead of getting off the street.
Totally agree.
I'm just thinking with the Apple traffic coming up and people from outside just pulling over when it looks crowded.
So do I hear you then suggesting that part of the management plan under 738 include signs?
I feel that way. I feel like I've said that every single meeting that we've had about this.
Well, but who's responsible for that? It's a public road. Is the town responsible for putting those up, or?
I would suggest that the planning board write to the appropriate town authority, whether it's the selectmen or the Department of Public Works, highway people, and request that no parking signs be put up along the road. I think it's really a
Jesse,
town thing.
were you trying to comment on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Mark. I think in order to do that, you need to change the traffic rules and orders. It would be something the selectmen would have to okay. I think the best way forward here is for the board to kind of recognize the limits of the permitting body and to maybe write a letter to the public safety or whoever else it is to say, here are the conditions of the plan, here's what's been given, these are our concerns going forward, and just put you on notice so that you're aware and that you can respond accordingly. But, you know, I think it would drive the planning board, you know, it would just consume, basically to move beyond permitting and get into enforcement is just not the planning board's expertise or where we have the most potential to change things. So putting public safety on notice is probably the most efficient way to deal with it going forward.
Okay. Wes, you've had your hand up for a long time. Did you want to make a comment? You're on mute.
Hi. Yeah, going back to the trees issue, in the original decision, it was the planting of trees along Great Road that was required, and we complied with that. I think the issue of additional trees, what I'm concerned about is making sure that we address the sightline issue properly. And I'm worried that we may end up with a situation where Jordan has to go back again because there's a question about sight lines for trees. I suspect there are only a very few spots where you would need a tree to block a sight line because of the trees that run east-west and with the fence on the north-south that's going in, it would seem to me that planting trees for sightline reasons might not be it just doesn't make great sense to me. So I think it would be good if someone from the planning board helped us with the sightline issue, just to make sure we're doing this the right way.
And again, from a plan review standpoint, we were looking for input on where you were proposing those to address sightlines. So is more just adding those on the plan so that we knew what to expect.
I think we could do that, but it would be good to have someone from the staff be part of that process so that we don't go around in circles.
Understood. Jesse, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, we'll help in any way that we can. Yeah.
Okay. Mark, Dexter.
Just on this issue, recommend waiting for the trees to change colors before doing the sight lines. If you pull up on Google Maps names, you can see two houses from the road. So once the leaves start falling off, you can actually see the sight lines that are in question a lot better.
Okay.
That's fine, except you're not going to have people out there in the winter. So
October, leaves are falling off the trees, and so yes.
Well, that's a very short window. I mean, you got to be think a little bit logically here.
Okay, I'm gonna cut everybody off. I'm gonna try to wrap us up.
Thanks.
Laura, I had my hand up for the last 20 minutes. Am I allowed to speak or no?
Who's speaking?
Dave Korn, one of the abutters.
Sorry, I did not see you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say, and I appreciate all the process that's gone before us. We're abutters who approve of the site, and I think I understand following each rule individually. I get all this. In totality, it seems like you are building a large pile of things for Jordan to address, and I just want to lay that out and say we're in favor of the business and proud that they're in Stowe, and hope that even with all these pieces and rules, that there's a way forward for Jordan to operate his business and have this work.
Well, I'm about to wrap up trying to figure out what that path forward is. And I believe we've landed on just several things, which is a note on the plan regarding the lattice, sorry, I've lost my way here. The removal of the tables that are no longer being pursued. And there was one more item. Oh, and a marking on the plan of placement of trees. So in terms of the planning board getting to acceptance of the modified plan, that was part of the condition. Those seem to be the outstanding items. Did I miss anything, Jesse?
No, those were the three I had noted. Let me just double check my notes.
I mean, clearly the note, which I think maybe we could give feedback on, but the note about the lattice and the removal of the tables is really easy. I think the harder one is proposal of the trees, which I think our staff has agreed to try to lend a hand in that dialogue, and then ultimately that will get us to the acceptance of the modified plan.
Yep.
I have a quick question for the board.
Sure.
Am I required to police the behavior of pedestrians on the property that choose to sit in the grass if it is under the outdoor occupancy limit?
I guess I'm going to give my interpretation, and then I ask for others.
Blankets within the jurisdiction of the planning board.
Right. So in terms of the location, I think it's in the locations that we've talked about where outdoor dining might happen, which includes setback of the 30 feet and under capacity. But I will query the rest of the planning board to see if they agree with that interpretation.
Am I required to eject customers that choose to sit under a tree to enjoy their coffee in the shade?
Honestly, if it's within the buffer zone or in areas that are not supposed to have outdoor dining, unfortunately, the answer is, my interpretation is yes, but I asked for the planning board and or staff to.
So I would be subject to fines for not chasing a man and his daughter out from under a tree enjoying lemonade in the summertime, is basically what you're saying. The use of the 2.5 acre property that I leased for customers, but I'm permitted to sit under a tree and enjoy a cup of coffee, as long as I'm not, as long as it's not a customer. I'm trying to understand this totalitarian state that I'm inheriting here with this 2.5 acres of beautiful gardens that were built by Wes and Shirley. I mean, am I subject to fines if I don't chase someone out from enjoying the shade under a tree?
Here's the thing. The bylaws are the bylaws. We don't have the right to waive them. So I'm just trying to answer your question in terms of what the bylaws say. And so I think in terms of being allowed outdoor seating by special permit, it comes with the conditions of the decision.
outside of my knowledge, gets a coffee and decides to sit in the shade somewhere on the property? Am I responsible?
My interpretation would be we've located or requested a location for the seating, and that's as far as we've gone. And we've done various other things to help guide people to be not so close to the fence, whether they're the drainage related to the parking lot or the fences or so forth. And so it's not quite so easy to be right up against the fence, but my interpretation is that you're subject to a total number of people around and just a guidance on where the seats are located. But I'm only one person among many.
Well, and the way that enforcement happens in Stowe is typically that someone will complain and then the enforcement officer will issue communications. Does anybody else from the planning board or staff want to weigh in on that?
There's nothing in the decision that says no one can be in the 30-foot setback. What the decision says is that we don't want to have that the planning board does not want to have the property owner incentivizing people to be in that, like Mark was saying. So it's not that you literally cannot be there, you got to get ejected from the property. It's that if there's going to be tables out there, let's just think about putting them in the right place so that we're not incentivizing people to be right on top of the property.
And my earlier comment was really, if people are outdoor dining in areas that are not in the guidelines of the decision, to me, you have some responsibility to tell customers where they should and shouldn't dine outdoors. Mark Dexter.
Thank you. This also is part of 729, and it also goes to what Mark said. People sit in that basin. People sit in that basin almost every day. Elderly people, children, I get jumping in it. It's fun. But I had an interaction this weekend where I took a picture because I was going to send it, and I was being accosted by the people being a picture. And I understand why. I wouldn't want my photo to show elderly people sitting in that basin. One had their chair between the parking lot and garage, parking lot and basin. Two elderly men were in the basin. It's the only shaded spot on that side. It's my tree that shades that small spot. Until the umbrellas are put up on the tables, there's no shade over there. So they do sit there.
And to be really specific, the planning board has issued the decision with conditions. We're not the enforcement officer and I can't speak for him. So I frankly don't know what his interpretation would be.
Okay. Question answered. Thank you.
All right. I think we have our path forward. Let's see if Dave, do you have a last comment?
Yeah, I don't want to, my last comment is that I can appreciate when the planning board isn't the venue with the jurisdiction to make an overriding sweeping policy. I appreciate the hell out of that. On the same token, to say, well, there's no sign and you're not really responsible, but yet you should be responsible, but we can't make you responsible. But if someone complains, then the zoning enforcement agent will have to come out. Of course, by the time he comes out, it's 2 days have passed. Whoever was there either died on property or they've clearly left. So it just seems to me like it's not logical. It's not a logical approach to the enforcement. It seems like, and I don't have the answer. Unfortunately, I can articulate the problem. I don't have the answer. So I leave you with that. But signs that say don't go beyond here or whatever.
Lori?
Yes.
Dave Corn, another abutter. I don't think that, I think I get there's rules, but what we're stating here doesn't make any sense. What the last speaker said, we're talking about signs to say where you can't go. I mean, before we were talking about umbrellas or tables or whatever, that made sense. It is a restaurant, it is a business that they're trying to run. And I think we're veering off what is practical.
And let's not lose sight here that the reason why this business can exist in this location has to do with a historic preservation bylaw that allows it. And so it doesn't make it exempt from the other bylaws that businesses, do. And again, for the other Dave, to your point, enforcement in general is hard. And I only mention the complaint because that's what typically happens. I'm just trying to describe what typically happens. Sarah, any last comment?
Not a comment, Lori, but a question. So in the response, it mentions that there's going to be a full-time person hired to help and manage traffic, set customer expectations, and sort of just help customers in general and manage outdoor stuff. And I would assume that helps manage outdoor stuff like, hey, there's a 30-foot setback. You can't sit in the 30-foot setback. Is there a time frame? And when you were just wrapping up your final points on what's next, I was hoping that there would be a timeline defined for when that person would be available and on site helping support that work, because it's not until next year. It's a very different picture during apple season than it would be if that person is hired now and is on site for whenever outdoor seating is allowed.
We have multiple full-time employees that look after the grounds, both from a maintenance and cleanliness standpoint, including myself, that often directs traffic when we have a very busy lunch.
And I appreciate that, but I think our reality is that seating is happening constantly on setbacks. And I'm hopeful that your maintenance person will deter that activity so that we don't endure that noise, as I know my other neighbors are enduring right now on their lot lines.
Just a thought that if I was able to provide tables, we probably wouldn't have people sitting in the shade along the lot lines.
Okay, so with that said, I think, Gordon, I'm trying to get you to at least some tables. Whether you want more or not is up to you in terms of what you ask for. And just remind everybody that, as part of the decision, we also will, be discussing how things go, after an initial period of time. And so we can revisit that then. So Jesse, do you have enough information? Is it clear our path forward?
Yes. Yeah, no, I'll follow up with Jordan West, make sure we're all on the same page here about what's required. Try to make sure that we can get it done. So yeah, no, it's clear to me.
All right. Go ahead, Mac Dexter, and then I'm closing out this topic.
It's actually just procedural, again, new to town, small town, so I don't know. When do the tables get flipped back over? Once this list is completed, or tomorrow morning? I don't know.
It could be another 6 months. There's no telling.
I don't wish that on you, Jordan. But basically these provisions have to be fulfilled before tables can go out.
The whole point of the plan modification is to have these things in place in the plan, and that, so.
Thank you very much.
I'm actually going to revert to Wes because I have no interest in continuing with this modification request under these circumstances. I plan to remove the tables and let my customers safely enjoy the grounds of their own volition. And I will maybe find a way to put a couch or someplace for at least 2 people to sit on the patio, and I will install the blinds. But this process is just not worth it, and the time, and I'm not going to ask Wes to plant trees. This is just too much. And if the abutters feel that strongly that a husband and wife and their 4-year-old drinking coffee under a tree is that disturbing, I want to really avoid the whole process. 9 months of time and planning and paperwork for something that makes no sense to my business, it's very difficult to justify. We made an attempt to bring something wonderful to this community that thousands of people seem to enjoy. And all we wanted was a place for them to sit and eat a sandwich. But this continually gets pushed forward and forward. We've missed the entire season. By the time the trees go in and we spend hours doing this paperwork again, there's going to be snow falling. And I just don't want to do it anymore. So Wes, if you would like to continue, I'm completely open to that. But at this point, I would like to withdraw and send a victory to the abutters and the conscientious objectors, and just allow my customers to enjoy the flower gardens at their own free will in a style that works for them. And I will do my very best to chase people away from the fence when they choose to sit near it.
So Jesse, given that we've already issued a decision, what do you want the path? What do you think the path forward should be?
So you've issued a decision that allows for certain things to take place with conditions. If some of those things, if they decide not to go forward with some of those things, so be it. It's not a requirement that they do go forward with it. You know, Nance could decide enough is enough, we're done, we're going to another town, and so be it. Somebody else could pick up and lease the property and come back with the same thing. It runs with the land. It's not tied to any one potential business. So, you know, it's unfortunate, but nonetheless, I think, you know, if there's certain aspects that just don't end up going forward, that they're just simply not applicable.
Okay. All right. I'm wrapping this topic up. Does anybody have any last comments to make before we?
I do, Lori. I'm embarrassed by Jesse's last comment. That's astounding to me as a member of the town. I've been here for 25 years. Holy cow. I don't care if he leaves and someone else picks up. That's embarrassing. And that's anti-business. And I'm embarrassed.
And Dave, with all due respect, we issued the decision, and honestly, if we received
Did you listen to Jesse's comment? He basically said, I don't care if
we
they
would
come
be
or
doing
go.
it already.
If I could just clarify what I'm trying to say here, the special permit runs with the land. So if the owner, the property owner, whether we're talking about a restaurant or whatever business, decides that they don't want to go forward anymore, that special permit is still valid for that property. It runs with the land, not with the business. That's all I meant. I have no.
I get that, but what you said, it was a different tone, Jesse. You have to admit that. I get what you're saying. That's legally true, but come on.
All right, I'm gonna wrap up the topic on that note.
I think if I could speak for a moment,
Sure, Wes.
you know, I feel as if the property as envisioned was to create a really wonderful setting for the town. That's what Shirley and I intended. Jordan is the type of person and business person that genuinely intended to do that. And I feel as if this is what we're encountering as a no backyard issue, not in my backyard issue. And I understand the abutters' concerns, but I feel like Jordan has been trying to do this the right way. He doesn't understand fully how the planning board operates. I find you guys are wonderful. You do your job. I'm proud of the planning board. But we've got a situation here that frankly is counter to what should be happening with this historical property. And the no backyard stuff, you know, not in my backyard stuff. It's sort of tragic.
Abutters comments aside, there's the decision. There's nothing in the decision that is not common to other development and businesses. And frankly, we're so close. And I understand that the different placement of the tables was a curveball, and maybe you weren't expecting the reaction, but the way that applications and special permits happen is that everything is put forth in the application and then gets discussed. And so, you know,
I just say it's a
the
tragedy,
reaction
Lori.
to
I'm sorry. Yeah.
the reaction to the new location, I would have that reaction regardless of what we're talking about, regardless of, you know, a butter's reactions. So that's, I guess, all I want to say about that.
Can I just say, we're not saying no to the tables, and I don't want to hear a bunch of public, whatever feedback about that. Realign the tables as much as you can in that area where it was approved on the lawn, and submit that drawing, and you can have the tables out there as long as everything's within the setbacks. And it's not a big deal to get that lattice up, which has been part of the decision since the beginning. And then deal with the screening. I mean, it's close to working. I know everyone's frustrated, but I don't want to see on Facebook tomorrow that the town won't let them have tables. I've seen the stuff they've been putting out. You're this close to getting the tables, reposition them in the area they were permitted for, right?
And then honestly, put in a modification so that next season you'll have, I mean, again, it doesn't matter whether it's Nan's or whether it's a different location. Plan modifications after decision are expected to be within what was presented. And there's nothing to say about that. The whole due diligence of a public hearing is to allow the public to make comment on the application of location and use. And so I don't know what else to say about that.
It's just become very complicated, and it just doesn't seem to be worth it for me anymore. One of our abutters has been flying a drone around our property, spying on us. It's not the type of it's not the type of situation I want to have. And if I can avoid one of our abutters flying a drone around my property, possibly looking in my windows to see how many people we could potentially pack around a picnic table, it's absurd. And I just don't want any part of it. And our customers will continue to enjoy. We're not going anywhere, Jesse. We're having a very good time. And our customers can bring a blanket or sit wherever they make themselves comfortable, and we can just avoid all of this nonsense.
I'd like to say, just as a planning board member, I think when this first came up to the planning board, I was absolutely thrilled. I thought that we were going to get a little quiet little cafe where people could go and sit and have coffee and just hang out in Stowe. And I was thrilled about that. When I saw the overcrowding issues and the traffic issues and the noise issues, it was a really different business than what I had originally envisioned 5 or 6 years ago. And I guess I take exception to the fact that the label anti-business. I don't feel that way at all. I don't feel anti-business. I feel like I am trying to protect the town of Stowe. I don't want to have to drive down 117 and have to wait because a truck and other cars can't get into the parking lot. I don't want to do that. I don't want to just, feel like there's a lot of noise in a place that's residentially zoned. It doesn't seem fair it seems a little bit melodramatic to say, oh, well, I'm going to take my ball and go. I wish that you would do what Nancy just said, just give us a plan for the tables, and you can get what you want. Don't make a big emotional deal out of this when it doesn't have to be that.
I submitted a plan for the tables.
Which were a different location than the application had.
I mean, it's a question. Every time I move something 10 feet, does that require a modification? I move them away from the abutters. I mean, I'm doing everything that I possibly can here. I was very clear that we weren't going to use the patio due to safety, but you said, great, you can put the 14 people on the patio. So we said, great, I thought I was doing a great thing. Let's move the tables towards 117. I got people sitting at a table 20 feet from cars going by. I couldn't imagine that that would be a problem for anybody. It's
And
just,
again, I think what you're hearing tonight is, frankly, we like some of the new locations, but unfortunately,
but we got to wait a month to schedule it again before we can go through with any of it. It's just, it's too difficult. It's been 10 months, 9 months, 10 months.
And you're at
But it
the
didn't have
end
to be
and
that
it can
way.
work.
I don't think it's too much to ask that you tell us all the different locations
I did.
to put in the decisions.
I told them all. When I submitted the plan, we moved them here and this is why. But should there have to be a gavel drop and wait 4 weeks for the next meeting to discuss that we're actually moving the tables away in favor of the abutters? I mean, at a certain point, like, we just have to be logical here. I mean, every time this is delayed, I have to go back and sit down and do more paperwork. I'm not even making money off these tables. It's a very big headache for me. And the neighbors obviously don't want them. They've
And
sent
again,
drones flying over my property. And like, I just want to provide something great for the community where people can bring their children and smell the flowers and enjoy a latte and have a chicken sandwich. You know,
And you
this
can.
reaction, it's like I'm opening a methadone clinic or a strip club. The pushback has been unrealistic.
It's because the business model and in recent months has not been what we expected.
I mean,
Or what was proposed, so.
I mean, it's takeout. It's a cafe. It's a busy cafe. It's popular, and whatever business is there has to be economically responsible for a multi-million-dollar historic renovation. Otherwise, there's going to be backhoes and nail guns there, and they're going to have to change the use of the property yet again. You know, we have a successful cafe. I understand quiet and quaint, but quiet and quaint doesn't pay the mortgage. And we're very popular and we're very busy. We're managing. We haven't had so much as a scratched fender in the parking lot. It just looks busy. You know, we had 2 occasions where someone parked on 117 and they were spoken to the minute that they walked in the door, but they happened to just grab their food and walk back out. And aside from putting an attendant at the driveway on the off chance that somebody parks in the road, we're managing it quite well. We have an agreement with the church up the street. He's been very cooperative. We're feeding him and his parish. We're bringing them food, and they're allowing our staff to park over there to make sure that there's more spaces available. And the amount of spaces that we do have available make it physically impossible to exceed the outdoor occupancy limits. There's just not enough spaces unless 11 cars came in minivans and packed the lawn, which has happened 0 times. We do head counts daily. And it's just the feedback and the concerns. It honestly, to me as a businessman, it feels more like a witch hunt than someone that's trying to cooperate with small business. I'm asking for picnic tables, not a roller coaster. And it's just gone on too long. I'm just happy to let people sit in the grass. They love it. It's just too much of a headache for me for 4 picnic tables. It just is. You've made it prohibitively difficult. And I just don't want to do it.
okay. I know that there's another person who has their hand up. I am trying to wrap up this topic, so
Yeah, I can, all right. I can be quick. So I've moved into Stowe in 135 Crescent Street 6 years ago, next to Nan's, shortly before it opened. I haven't experienced any of the noise or parking or any of the complaints that we're talking about today. In fact, I go there maybe twice a week. Sorry to say, my waistline is getting a little bit bigger, but so I just don't quite understand the pushback here. I know that the planning board is trying to do their job here, but from an outsider's point of view, this feels like a common sense approach should rule here, where we're moving picnic tables a few feet off. In fact, they're moving closest to my property and I have 0 issue with. So just wanted to put that out there.
thank you. David Corn. David, do you still have a comment?
No, all set. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I
So
think
I
this-
have one I have one item for the plan, and that's just to get a dotted, as long as it's getting modified, if it's going to be modified, just get a dotted line that shows the 30-foot setback so that everybody who looks at it can see for their benefit, for whatever purpose the line is being used.
And then fill it with the tables. They can be end to end, farm to table kind of thing. Fill it with the tables within the setback.
We'll spray paint the grass so it's really easy for the drones to see that we're cooperating.
And that's illegal, so report them to the police if you have drones over your property.
All right. I'm gonna wrap this up. I guess that's that's all on that topic. We're gonna move on. All right. So next up for the planning board is an draft bylaw amendments and rules and regs. I know, Jesse, you look really psyched, so.
I would suggest, I mean, happy to go through it now, but if you'd like, it can certainly wait until we have the discussion of the zoning bylaw amendments for the AAN, and we can discuss the regulations and how they interplay at the same time. If I know it's getting close to 10, so.
And then I know in the packet, there were also some templates. I didn't know if you wanted to discuss those.
Sure, yeah, I just wanted to, I threw them in there just to see if you had any comment. This is just for it was meant to be helpful for applicants to understand what they were actually reading when they got a decision in the mail. And so one of them is in regard to a special permit and the other one is for a subdivision. So yeah, I don't know if there were any comments. I'm happy to take them, edit that, change the approach, whatever folks feel.
All right, so planning board, you're on mute, Meg.
I was gonna just ask you, in this quit claim deed, you have HOA. Are they really doing an HOA, or I thought we discussed that was going to Stowe Conservation or Stowe?
No, there's not going to be an HOA. Let me.
It's your comment over in the blocks, in the red pink blocks.
No, those are actually their attorney's comments. So basically what they're saying here is that he's just basically kind of regurgitating the decision. So in the event that there is an HOA, this is the language that would need to be included. He's just showing where everything would need to be, but no, there is no, I would ignore that since there's no intention to have an HOA. The only need for that was for the homeowners association. The road is expected to be public. There's easements for the stormwater infrastructure, so I don't see the need for the HOA in any capacity.
So I admit I am not really up to looking at these templates, but I think if everyone can take a look and we can discuss them at a future meeting as well. Mark, did you have something to say? Not Mark Jones, Mark Forget.
Yes, I did. I was wondering if you had a copy of the zoning changes that you're making that may have the actual change onto them, because these are, I read through them and they're very lengthy. Is there actually portions of it were changed, or is the whole thing a new thing? I'm just trying to figure it out. Maybe.
Mark, what was it that you read through? Are you talking about the AAN rules and regulations?
Yes.
Yeah, so those ones should have been track changed so that there was some underlines where there were additions and then strike throughs where there were deletions.
Yeah, I didn't notice them when I was going through it, just.
Yeah, let me send it. It's hard. Let me send it to you and make sure that that's on there. But I do have those versions. But yeah, we will when we get to the point of getting them to the board. We're going to have
another
some
abutter.
annotated copies that show what's actually been changed.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank
In
you.
this particular copy in the packet, the changes don't begin until page 30. Blue.
Maybe I didn't read enough of it. You tell me, Malcolm?
This is an updated version based.
All I know is
on-
I wasn't stressed out at all. I ate a whole thing of ice cream today. No problem. Okay, appreciate it. Anything you send me would be good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any, I guess, other remaining comments or topics from the planning board members?
Just for fun, next week, we can look at the pictures and the stuff about the Harvard cottage development I went over to.
Yeah.
It was interesting. So, for another topic.
Okay.
I was very impressed, Nancy. Pictures and everything.
Yeah, it was interesting that they're making driveways purposely not big enough to hold a car so that every car has to be in a garage. And then therefore there's not enough storage space for people. So they all have basements, but you aren't able to park in driveways in front of your garage. They're so tight where the garage is back up that you can like barely get out. But they said it hasn't deterred anyone. The whole place is almost sold out and there's only a few built already.
Wow.
Yeah, it was different.
Lori, just a point of clarification. I'm not sure if Jordan's still on or not, but does he have permission to do the 4 tables?
So again, all he needs to do, there are only 3 minor changes to the plan he submitted that need to happen, and he can certainly touch base with the planning board office to go through those. I know everyone's frustrated, Jordan and the butters, but the fact is there's a very clear path forward of how he can get tables. And I'm sorry, but
Not even the 4 tables right now.
again, there just needs to be 2 are so minor, and 1 is just to go
But
through.
how long a waiting period, Lori? So he doesn't have permission for the 4 tables.
Again,
To make a new layout, right?
in order to move forward, he needs to submit a modified plan, which is what we reviewed tonight. But based on the changes he verbally made, he would need to take out the tables that are no longer being proposed, because frankly, we would have said that that was a modification. Put a note about the lattice on there, and then basically he does need to show the location of the trees on the plan. And again, the staff is.
So you don't have the authority to just say it's okay to do the 4 tables?
Again, the decision has a
okay.
condition.
Sorry, I got, you don't have to repeat it. Thanks. Thanks, Lori.
I don't think it's
He has
clear.
the
'Cause-
approval to do the tables when he meets the condition of the decision, and it's clearly written, and I understand it's more bureaucracy than he's used to going through. But again, that it's been clear what he needs to provide. Unfortunately, he
But can't you
provided
say- can't you
something
say
different.
yes? You can't say yes to one part and no to the other parts.
It just needs to be on the plan. We pretty much did tonight, and he just needs to update the plan.
And he,
The
and
picture.
then you would reach a decision at the next meeting.
The decision, yes, the,
Lori, do the trees need to be planted or just a plan for the trees right now?
Jesse, how is the decision written?
The trees would need to be, the trees need to be planted, yeah. The trees are required, they would need to be planted. Technically, it could happen next week, depending on how quickly everything goes forward. There's no need for any longer wait. There's no requirement for a wait for scheduling a public hearing or anything. We could do this as quickly as the applicant's able to get it going.
And again, all that tonight was supposed to be about. It wasn't a public hearing. It was simply, he submitted a plan that was supposed to show various things in accordance to the decision. I'm sorry that he made an adjustment to the tables. I can understand his logic. I actually like some of those, but those weren't part of the original application. So it is what it is. But to your point on the 4 tables, he needs to finish revising the picture, as we said tonight, with the 3 things, and then plant the trees in accordance with that.
Plus, I feel like there's nothing new that we said here tonight. I mean, we have been saying this for months, you
The
know.
only new thing that
we
we
haven't
said
changed
tonight was that he couldn't put the tables in a different place than he applied for.
Got it. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Yeah, and I mean, on that point, I think that we are, whether we like the new location or not, because of the potentially significant change, I think we're obliged.
I
to
know.
have, who knows, the neighbors might say, that's great, do it. But we can't assume that. We're obliged to get their input to make sure that we're not, making some significant change that's going to impact them. So, I mean,
And if
that's
you,
where it
and
goes.
honestly, if you just read the definition of minor mod, it would have been a huge stretch for us to say coming up with new locations for the tables was a minor mod.
It was a minor mod. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I wasn't expecting him to sort of blow up in frustration, given that he's this close. And I am sure we will see many more postings in social media, etc. And Nancy, as the newest member, I know you're sensitive to those things. If you have any ideas of, how it could have been different, I'm all ears. But unfortunately,
It's just, it's never fully informational. It's never fully factual. It's mostly emotional. And then you just can't see clearly to the end when that's how the information is put out. So it annoys me.
well, and what I'll actually add to that is he's the one who posted that there was
Right.
a public hearing tonight when there was not a public hearing. This
And
should have just been, our plan modification reviews typically have nobody in attendance, and it's
Right.
us going through very quickly.
Well, and I posted on that information was correct. And all these people who said they were going to attend and speak, I said, that is past. That's not what this is.
And frankly, I tend to err on the side of letting people speak, but there was really no reason for people to speak because we literally were just supposed to be reviewing the plan modification in accordance with the decision. So
Yeah. I mean, I just felt they were trying to incite people to get the decision they wanted or whatever, but just do what's required on the plan and you could have the stuff.
well, that's the thing, is he could have had the modified plan a week after we issued the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
agree,
I guess-
except for the minor things that we came up with. This could have been approved,
Months
weeks ago. And would have been going forward, but
Am I the only one who doesn't remember him saying anything about safety related to the patio? I thought he said he
No.
wanted to use it for his own family.
Right.
Yeah.
I never heard
I haven't
that
heard anything
about the
about
drop off until tonight.
yeah, I
I'm
don't know.
curious about that. Yeah.
And you know what? If you got an 18-inch drop off, then just put a railing around it. You'd have to do that if your family used it anyway, or if you had people buying grills out there anyway. It just seemed a little lame. I mean, I guess I don't get why he doesn't understand the impact to the neighborhood. I mean, that's what baffles me. You know, it's like, it is a successful business. I am really happy that it's successful, but you know what? It is not the appropriate location for the business model that he is creating in that area. And it just, I don't get why we're being labeled anti-business when it's not a practical business model for that space in that residential neighborhood.
Well,
But yet there is that other abutter saying he doesn't see all those concerns. I don't
I
know.
mean, regardless, the 30-foot setback for a business to residential
Yeah.
Yeah,
has nothing to do with that location.
right.
I don't
Okay.
know. I'm exhausted. I
Yeah.
make the motion that we.
Oh, no, I know. I'm just
Call
venting.
it- Yeah, this is very tiring. It very is.
Ugh. He just doesn't see, all he had to do was just do what was required, and then he would have
know.
been done
I know,
Well, I mean, when did we issue that decision?
months ago.
Yeah.
July 13th.
Okay, so he literally a week later could have issued the modification. Even if he said, I'm not using the patio, he could have just done the other area and then moved on and then suggested elsewhere later.
Trees could have been planted. Lattice could have gone up the first week he got his
I think that's
permit.
the thing that kills me is if we issued the decision on July 14th, we haven't heard from him until we got that last plan. But yet now we're the bad guys because it took so long.
Yeah. And I don't know if Wes understands. He should understand, but you know, I know they've been through a lot there, but. Mm.
Yeah, I like to pitch in one thing here. You guys are doing your job. You're doing a good job. You know, in 2015, when that special permit was issued, it was for indoor dining and 14 seats on the outside. And when Jordan came in, he didn't plan on putting any seats on the inside. He planned on doing this whole game to try and get seating on the outside. This is not your fault. Don't beat yourselves up. You're doing a good job. So keep the good work up and don't worry about criticism because criticisms is not worth much.
I would add to that. As I said before, I'm proud of the planning board. I'm proud of the chair. You guys do your job really professionally. You're volunteers, for God's sake. So, you know, I understand this, but I also understand things from Jordan's point of view. You know he in order to comply and develop the plan that he provided took thought. We have that typical week where you guys are not in session, and so you know it's a problem from both sides, and to go after Jordan, I think is not appropriate.
No, I'm not. I mean, look, I eat at Nan's all the time. I love the business. I think the only thing that happened tonight was that he proposed different locations and we basically said that would have been a modification, that we should have discussed it in the original application. And I feel like at that point, that was the end.
Right. And I think all these things being said, I mean, we should continue to try to think about how can we be more, and I don't mean lenient to business, but open to business ideas and making the process go easier and faster so that business works better. But that doesn't mean you need to throw out everything and let them do whatever they want. I mean, that's the real challenge, is that trade-off between what they want to do, what the town wants to do, what the neighbors want to do. And
well, and I think a lot of it is education. You know, hindsight being 2020, I guess during the public hearing, when he said he didn't want to use the patio, we basically should have made sure he understood you're only proposing here right now. So if you don't get what you want here, is there anything else? I mean, I feel like it's an educational thing.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Definitely.
I mean, the long and short of it is that he could still, I mean, restaurants are still open. I still don't get why he doesn't make tables for, you know, like 10 or 20 people inside. I just really don't get it. You know, I would do that rather than have all the retail-y stuff around the place. I would just have a really nice, quiet little restaurant there. I don't get why he doesn't do that.
Well, and I feel like Nancy,
You know?
Say that
Nancy,
again?
I was just gonna say, because the grounds are beautiful, the building, so it's nice to be outside with that as a backdrop, I think. But there's no reason he can't figure out two options like that. In the winter, he's gonna have no seating, you know?
Well, I mean, we really can't outguess how he wants to run his business. That's his decision, right?
yeah. It'll be interesting to see if he truly doesn't move forward or if he calms down and does what Nancy said.
He should.
I hope so.
Anyway, I think I heard a motion to adjourn a while ago.
Yeah.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All right.
Third.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye,
See you guys
everybody.
next week.